and welcome. I'm Melinda Akinlami. Tonight, Acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Ibrahim Mohammed, swears in 250 members of the 2019 Election Petition Tribunal, challenges them to protect integrity of the judiciary. More reactions trail suspension of Justice Walter Onnoghen as Chief Justice of Nigeria as opposition PDP suspends presidential campaign for 72 hours in protest. Senate to reconvene on Tuesday to discuss the suspension of Justice Onnoghen as National Assembly leadership meets tomorrow over the matter. And European leaders ask Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro to call elections within 8 days or face official recognition of the country's opposition.
Business news tonight. Investors stay cautious on financial markets following the suspension and replacement of the embattled Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onnoghen.
And on sports news tonight, Japan's Naomi Osaka beats Czech's Petra Kvitova in a thrilling Australian Open final to win back-to-back Grand Slams and become the new world #1.
In what can be described as his first official task, the newly appointed Acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Ibrahim Mohammed, swore in 250 members of the 2019 Election Tribunal in the nation's capital, Abuja, today. While inaugurating the members at the Supreme Court complex, the acting CJN asked them to uphold the integrity of the arm of government and discharge their duties with the fear of God. Justice Mohammed was sworn in yesterday by President Muhammadu Buhari as the acting CJN following the suspension of Justice Walter Onnoghen, who is facing charges of false asset declaration at the Code of Conduct Tribunal.
It is from this oath that your duties and responsibilities as chairman and members of the election petition tribunals in your various places of assignment spring forth and has a binding effect on each and every one of you. This is an ethical undertaking to justice, as well as should uphold the rule of law in all our various courts and tribunals. As such, I implore you to discharge your onerous duty diligently and with the fear of Almighty God. The judiciary is in a trying time. You must, and I repeat, you must stand to protect and uphold the integrity of this arm of government. If any other person is trying to destroy it, we should try to protect it. If we don't protect it ourselves, no one else will protect it for us. Therefore, it is our bounden duty to see that we protect the judiciary wherever you find yourself.
The main opposition, that's the People's Democratic Party, PDP, is talking tough on the suspension of the embattled CJN, and the party has taken its criticism a notch higher by stopping its presidential campaign for 72 hours. A statement by the national chairman of the party, Mr. Uche Secondus, describes President Buhari's move as a dangerous and brazen assault on the Constitution, and there's no point in campaigning for an election that's already undermined. He says, and I quote, "It's our hope that President Buhari will listen to the voice of all lovers of democracy the world over and restore democracy in Nigeria immediately and without qualifications. At the moment, the President has effectively suspended the Constitution under which basis the elections are being contested." End of quote. Meanwhile, the PDP National Publicity Secretary, Mr. Kola Ologbodiyan, is asking the acting CJN, Justice Mohammed, to resign.
The People's Democratic Party notes the illegal swearing-in of members of the Election Petition Tribunal judges by Justice Mohammed Tanko and surmised that his action was a complete nullity. The PDP insists that in the face of our law, Justice Tanko cannot function as a Chief Justice of Nigeria, as there is no vacancy in that office since the 1999 Constitution, as amended, has no provision for 2 Chief Justices of Nigeria at any particular point in time. Justice Walter Onore is still in charge as the Chief Justice of Nigeria. The PDP therefore charges Justice Tanko to note that he is allowing himself to be used by despotic forces in their bid to truncate our hard-earned democracy. From Justice Tanko's first illegal assignment, which is the swearing-in of election tribunal justices for the forthcoming elections, Nigerians can now see the raison d'etre for his illegal appointment. This action is in itself a nullity, and we caution the state justices to be reminded of the popular maxim that something can never be built on nothing. Nigerians can recall that the PDP had always alerted that President Buhari is bent on removing Justice Onore so as to replace him with a pliable CJN that will help him uphold his rigging plots and achieve his self-succession bid, having realized that he cannot win in any free and fair electoral contest.
Meanwhile, the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, believes the decision of the main opposition party, PDP, to halt its campaign over Justice Onore's suspension is a face-saving measure. The minister, who faulted the campaign trail of the opposition party, also wondered if the suspended CJN was a member of the PDP. He said in a statement, and I quote, "I would have been a happier person if the same people who are now crying tyranny and dictatorship could really address the issue raised by the president in his address on Friday, that additional investigations have revealed that several millions of dollars were found in the CJN's account. And when the CJN was confronted with the original allegation, he admitted that he forgot to make full declaration and it was a mistake." End of quote. He insists that the president only carried out an order of a court of competence jurisdiction directing him to suspend the Chief Justice pending the final determination of the cases against him at the Code of Conduct Tribunal. Now it appears another arm of government, which is the legislature, is ready to be part of the ongoing squabble between the executive and the judiciary. A source in the National Assembly has confirmed to Channels Television that the Senate will reconvene on Tuesday, January the 29th, to discuss the suspension of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Walter Onoren. The source also confirms that the National Assembly will hold a leadership meeting tomorrow, January the 27th, over the matter. On Thursday, the Senate adjourned until February the 19th after the presidential and National Assembly elections. In the meantime, a senior advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, believes the Code of Conduct Tribunal's order, which President Muhammadu Buhari relied on to suspend Mr. Onoren, is suspect. Mr. Falana said in a statement that the ex parte application relied on was filed on January the 9th, while the motion on the notice of substantive suit filed on January the 11th, with the name of the lawyer that argued the ex parte motion not stated in that order. He also suggested that Justice Onoren might have contributed to his own downfall by postponing indefinitely the meeting of the National Judicial Council, which could have deliberated on the matter and taken an informed position. Mr. Falana, however, challenged his colleagues to collectively rise up to the occasion by reviewing the entire Onoren saga in the interest of the nation's judiciary. The CJN suspension has also been generating reactions from the international community. The United States government says it's deeply concerned by the impact of the executive's decision to replace the Chief Justice without the support of the legislative arm of government on the eve of national and state elections. A statement from the U.S. Embassy in Nigeria notes widespread criticism across the country that this decision is unconstitutional and weakens the supposed determination of government, candidates and political party leaders to ensure transparent elections. It adds, and I quote, "We urge that the issues raised by this decision be swiftly resolved and peacefully as well, in accordance with due process, full respect for the rule of law, and the spirit of the Constitution of Nigeria. Such action is needed urgently now to ensure that the decision does not cast a pall over the electoral process, end of quote. Meanwhile, the EU Election Observation Mission is also worried about the process and the timing of this move. In a statement, it says, and I quote, "With 20 days until the presidential and National Assembly elections, political parties, candidates and voters must be able to have confidence in the impartiality and independence of the judicial system. The EU EOM calls on all parties to follow legal processes provided for in the Constitution to respond calmly to any concerns they may have," end of quote. For the British High Commission, the concern especially is in the wake of comments from lawyers and members of the civil society. The Commission says, and I quote, "We respect Nigeria's sovereign authority and its right to adjudicate on constitutional provisions, but as friends of the Nigerian people, we are compelled to observe that the timing of this action, so close to the national elections, gives cause for concern. It risks affecting both domestic and international perceptions on the credibility of the forthcoming elections. We, alongside with other members of the international community, are following developments closely," end of quote. The statement is also encouraging all actors to maintain calm and address the issues raised by this development through due process. To other stories now, President Muhammadu Buhari has again assured Nigerians of better days ahead, promising that their sacrifices will not be in vain if they support him for re-election next month. The president was speaking to a crowd of APC supporters at the historic Makpo Hall in Ibadan, the Oyo State capital, today. He asked them to vote massively for the APC to ensure continuity of all ongoing infrastructure projects, especially the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Our correspondent, Bukola Oriowo, tells us more.
The ancient Makpo Hall in Ibadan is filled to capacity with party faithful and supporters of the All Progressives Congress, APC. It was yet another time for the presidential candidate of the party to meet with the electorate ahead of the February 16 polls. The APC presidential candidate promised to consolidate on the gains that have been recorded in the last 3.5 years.
We have watched over the years how lives and properties are lost on a daily basis. And if a fraction of what this country was earning has been used to develop this infrastructure, people here will benefit more than in the other parts of the country. That is why the Minister of Transportation and the Minister of Works and Housing are working very hard to make sure that the railway between Lagos and Ibadan and the road are done by the end of this year.
The president's promise is corroborated by the Oyo State Governor, Senator Abiola Ajimobi.
This is a man, our president, that in the last 3.5 years, he has moved Nigeria from the low level to the next level.
The national chairman of the party, Comrade Adams Oshiomhole, asked the people to vote against the privatization of Nigeria and sharing of national wealth among a few.
Come out and vote against privatization of Nigeria. Vote against the auctioning of our national assets. Vote against enriching the phrase of Atiku. And vote to continue with Empower program. When you do that, in another 4 years, Nigeria will not be the same again.
Earlier, the APC presidential candidate had paid homage to royal fathers, where he asked them to reflect on where the present administration met the affairs of the country and what has been achieved in the last 3.5 years. Bukola Oriowo, Channels Television News.
And shortly after the president's visit to Oyo State, his campaign trail moved to neighboring Osun State, where party supporters gathered at the stadium in Osogbo, where he reiterated his promise to continue to improve infrastructure, security, and fight corruption in the country. In part 2, after the break, INEC promises to study 2 conflicting court judgments on the participation of the candidates from Zamfara State in the 2019 general elections. Join us again.